Hello, welcome to my studio. Today's Tuesday tip is all about writing. Let's get right in it. How's that rough draft going? How's writing your novel? Is it going okay? Here's my tip for you. When you are writing your story, just get the story out. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about having everything completely meticulous just yet, because if you focus too much on polishing your story as you're writing it, you're going to end up spending more time on the editing process than you are on the story writing process. And then you get stuck in editor mode, and it kind of shuts off the creative flow of writing your story. Now, in a future video, I'll be showing you how I made an outline for my story that I'm working on. It's more of a hands-on approach than a template, but more about that another time. Your rough draft is going to be a little rough, and don't worry about editing it in the process of writing. What you need to do is just get the story out, whether you're writing it down or you have a laptop that you were writing on, whatever method of writing that you have, just get your story out. Not necessarily like an elevator pitch type get your story out where you're just writing a synopsis or a blurb of your story. No, write the story, but the details and the polishing and the fine-tuning is going to come in the editing process. Right now, you just got to get the story out. You just got to get it out of your head. And then once you get it out of your head, and say you're done writing for the day, the next time that you go to write, the next time you go to work on that rough draft, stop for a moment and read the last however many pages you wrote the last time. Say you wrote 4 pages or 15 pages, and you can set a limit for yourself. Read and edit everything you wrote previously, or read everything from all the previous times you've written. Does that make sense? So if you had a writing session and you got 4 pages in, next time that you started to write, work on those 4 pages. But say you already had 50 pages. You can choose to either start at the beginning of your story and read all the way up and just fine-tune it. When you do it that way, you are re-editing every so often to make sure everything is nice and polished, because a publisher is going to want your story to be done. They're not going to want to edit it for you. They're going to want you and expect you to have that done yourself. So let's walk through an example that I just try to do, but I'll do it a little bit better. Okay, you're sitting down to work on your novel. This is the first time you are working on it. You write the prologue, first chapter, and you're 10 pages in. Okay, you're stopping for the day. You go to write another day. Now, read those first 10 pages and edit, critique it, fix the grammar is what I'm trying to say, and then work on your novel again. That does a couple things. First off, it edits what you previously wrote, and 2, because you're rereading what you've already written, it helps get you in that headspace to start working on your novel. You might already be ready to work on your story, but reading it again kind of helps get you fired up for your story again. So then that writing session, you write 4 pages. So the third time you go to work on your story, the third different day, you have 14 pages previously written. Now you can either go back from the very beginning and read all 14 pages and edit again, or you can just work on the last 4 pages that you wrote, because that was from your last writing session. Because from your second writing session, you will have edited everything from the first time. So the third time, you're going to be editing what was right before it, but if you choose to do all of it, you're editing for the last 2 writing sessions. You go to write a fourth time, you're now editing for the 3 writing sessions. And, excuse me, you can choose to do how you want, but here's some pros for why that it might be good to an extent do all of it. Because as you're going through it, think about continuity. You want your story to flow, and your writing style is going to stay the same, I would assume so. So it's going to have a similar voice because it's you writing it, and you write the way that you do. It's going to sound like it comes from you. But sometimes I've noticed in my writing, if I just start writing again and I've not read anything from the previous writing session, or if I don't do a little bit of edits of the last time that I wrote, I start off where I want to, and I'll have a note for myself like where I've left off, and I'll get started into it. But when the next time I go to write, if I read all of that, I can see where it feels disproportionate, where it feels like it's not flowing easily. And you want to make sure as your story goes along, your story's gonna, the more you write, the more pages you're adding. So the longer your story is gonna get. And you don't want to lose yourself in the story and forget timelines. That was my last writing tip, was working on a timeline for yourself. That's really important to help with the continuity of your story. And as you're working on your rough draft, you are editing what you wrote before. If you're editing as you're writing, that slows the writing process out. And oh my goodness, I don't think we'd ever have any books published if people did it that way, because it would just take so much longer than just get out what's in your head. It might be silly, it might be ridiculous, you might use the same word multiple times, but when you go back to edit that, you're like, okay, I've used this same word 3 times in the last paragraph. I need to find a synonym for this, or I need to find a different way to word this so I'm not doubling up on my words. Because every word in your book needs to, every sentence, every word needs to fight for the reason to be there. They need to have a purpose. People are not going to want to read too much of the bland and mundane. And that's bound to happen in a story where if you're writing about people's lives, sometimes they are boring and mundane, but you have to edit out as much bore as possible. And every word needs to fight for the right to be on your page. There needs to be purpose for everything you write. If you mention something, then you need to make sure that it shows up later in the story, because your readers are reading it. And if you have someone that's really prolific and they read your story within a couple days or even an evening, which I've done that, then there's times where I've been like, wait a minute, they mentioned something over here that they never brought back up. There was no closure to it. But if you were editing what you wrote previously before you started your new stuff, then that's going to help with the continuity and help those things to not happen, so that you are flowing your story very nicely with some great continuity. I know I keep saying that, but repetition really helps with learning. And if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of like a broken record. I like to repeat myself. I don't mean to, but I know that repetition is important, and I want to make sure that I'm teaching you as best as possible. Hey, are you liking this video? Then like the video down below. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to hear more writing and art tips, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification icon so that you don't miss an episode. All right, let's get back in. Your words in your novel are the diamonds. Make sure that they are all polished and pretty, but don't worry about making it pretty until after you get your story out. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the likes, hearts, follows, comments, shares. I super appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here. See you next time. Bye!